Welcome to the live discussion on the CAT 2025 slot 2 paper. When we look at the slot 2 and when we look at the LRDI section, we've got an unambiguous view from most of the students who've taken the test that this was definitely one of the more tougher sections that they have seen in recent years. Many have reported that finding sets to work on, finding questions to score marks off was a very, very tedious and difficult exercise in the afternoon slot. Well, there's nothing much to worry. You all know that in a very tough section, the overall average does seem to fall. But then as long as you're doing better than the average, the percentile will always be on the higher side. This is not a question of absolute marks. It's a question of doing relatively better than your competition. Keeping that in mind, let's take a look at the LRDI section of slot 2. The LRDI section of slot 2 had a total of 22 questions. No big surprise, no big changes from years, and no big change from the slot 1 section of LRDI. Now here in this 22 questions, we find that there were 11 questions which are non-MCQ. That would be a sigh of relief because you don't get docked negative marks for that. The pattern was similar to last year, 5 sets, 2 sets with 5 questions each, and 3 sets with 4 questions each. So CAT seems to be following the same formula of giving 5 sets and varying the number of questions between those sets between 4 or 5. Sometimes we've seen students come back to us and say that, okay, inherently they have classified the IIMs by giving 5 questions in a set are basically notifying you that they are more difficult ones, and that by giving 4 questions in a set, they're notifying you it's relatively easier. And therein lies the trap. There's nothing which tells us that a 5 question set is more difficult than a 4 question set. One can only make up or decide on this only after looking at the set, looking at what was asked in the set, looking at the ideas present in the set before we come to such conclusions. Let's take a look at each of these sets. One of the sets in this paper was on balls and hoops. There were 6 balls which are passing through 4 hoops, and there were statements given which made it similar to akin to a logical reasoning puzzle. Statements saying that specific balls were passing through certain hoops and certain balls were not passing through a hoop and were getting stuck. When they pass through, they ping. When they get stuck, when they don't pass through, they get stuck. They don't make a ping. So the data was saying that certain balls, when they went through a certain hoop, made a ping. Now, when you look at the data in that way, the key to solving this question was arranging the data in a form that is easily understandable. If anybody translated those statements into a comparison bar, saying that A is greater than B and B is lesser than C, if somebody had followed that particular format of ordering all of these balls and hoops in terms of a comparison line, this question would have been solved quite easily. However, if you did not stumble onto that idea, this would have also puzzled you. However, of all the 5 sets, we find that the balls and hoops set is the one that's of moderate difficulty level, and this is something that every student must have attempted, should have attempted in order to increase their score. The second set which you're talking about is the set on authors. They are co-authors. They co-author with 1, 2 or 3, 1, 2, 3 people apart from themselves, and when they are doing that, certain data is presented. Now this data was in the form of a bar chart, but the beauty of that is that when you translate that bar chart back into a diagram, what we would get is a Venn diagram question, and whatever was coming to the bar graph and the missing elements of that Venn diagram, the data for that missing parts were present in the form of statements. I would not say that this was an easy set to crack, but certainly if you get the idea to translate into a Venn diagram, it would be a big step in solving this particular puzzle. However, we would classify this particular set, which had 4 questions in it, on the difficult side. There's a question on sustainability index, which spoke about the sustainability index. And in this particular set, you also found that there's a scatter plot. The sustainability index talks about changes from 2016 to 2020 and changes from 2020 to 2024. This particular set would have seemed daunting. However, there were a few giveaways in this particular set. The set clearly mentions that the sustainability index takes integral values between 1 and 100. And if somebody had spotted that, and if you're good at percentages, the scatter plot was showing the percentage change from 2016 to 20 and from 20 to 24. If you incorporated both of these elements and had you started with certain assumptions about a few numbers, this is certainly a difficult set on the face of it. But if you crack that idea, this was one set that could still have been done in these 5 set of questions that we have got. So sustainability index, difficult set, but if you crack the idea that by plugging in certain values and using concepts of percentages, this could have been worked out. The real big challenges were the sets on pollution index, where we have 3 districts which have 2 cities, non-urban areas. That was a very difficult set. The data was very complex. We would call it a quant caselet kind of a question. And this, if somebody entered or got into this question, would have got bogged down. You would have lost time without having any idea how to proceed further in this particular set. A must avoid set in today's paper. One of the sets is on music gurus and their students. It is a typical LR distribution set, 5 questions in it. We classify this as a difficult question, but if you are a time student and you're paying attention, you would found that a question very similar to this had in fact come in the time material, notably in one of the aimcats. It's an idea. If you had solved one of the aimcats, the idea on how to proceed with such questions would be embedded in your minds. But however, that does not say that we are classifying this question as moderate or easy. Certainly the concept would be known, but solving it would still take a lot more effort. Let us now take a look at some feedback or some bites that we gathered from the field when we spoke to a student.
Yeah. So hi Disha, so how was your CAT analysis for slot?
Personally, VAS was too easy for me.
Okay.
Comparably, LIDA was too difficult. I was not able to solve at least 2 sets. The one set I was too stuck on was games and tournaments. That was too difficult. And speaking about quant, it was like moderate. I expected a lot of algebra questions, but it was a little less comparably to previous years. So
you had more arithmetic questions?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, so did you give enough marks for going forward, like 20, 30?
Yeah, not much actually. I have given 4 or 5 like. The scores were, the percentile score was around 60, 70.
Yeah.
So I expected more than that for CAT, but still because of DI, maybe the scores may decrease, but still VRC.
Yeah. So how was your preparation build up for CAT? Like what resources you used and how all of this has helped?
I studied from Time Institution. So the most of the books I referred was from Time series only, even the mocks and all. Because once you read from the Time, you have enough capability to write the CAT examination. Because Time questions are more tougher than the CAT examination. So that was my preparation.
So that helped you?
Yes, that helped me.
Okay, so I really wish all the best going forward, because there are other MBA exams in India as well, and you can always reach out to us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time, Disha. Appreciate it.
So overall, when we look at the LRDI section of the afternoon slot, we can classify this particular section to be on the difficult side. It is certainly a challenging paper, but as I said at the beginning of this video, that when you look at a very difficult section, when a section is very difficult, it's your relative performance that really matters as opposed to the absolute marks. So many of you who are sad and feeling low because you didn't perform well as per your standards, as per your mock tests in the past, needn't worry about it. This is genuinely a section which was difficult. The scores are going to be on the lower side. The cutoffs are going to fall. So all you need to do is to identify that one doable set which we spoke about, which was rated as moderate. If you are able to do that one particular set, it will go a long way in achieving your cutoffs. Identifying the doable set I would say was a primary challenge in today's afternoon slot DILR section. And if somebody had negotiated this particular challenge, it would help them clear the cutoffs. There is overall, we would also find that there is a high risk in today's paper. There were just too many sets which had traps in them. And I would classify the afternoon section as high risk on getting stuck with the difficult ones. And if somebody was actually working on the clock, looking at their time and trying to cut down their the time spent on a question where they're not making any headway, they would have been probably able to attempt a few more questions. Overall, we would rate this DILR section to be tougher than last year's DILR for sure. And we would say definitely on more difficult side compared to slot 1 today. However, normalization is there. We all know that you need to do relatively better than others. So please log in, subscribe to the Time4Cat channel. We've got a lot of updates coming up. If you haven't used some of the things that we have put up, like the percentile estimator, the first cut analysis, please do so. Check the scores, check what we are saying, look at the detailed analysis, and in a few days' time, when the answer sheets are released by the IIMs, we'll look at the score calculator, we'll put up the percentile predictor, and also the call predictor. So subscribe to the channel and keep checking for updates on a regular basis.